Hello and welcome to the Vocal Sound Healing Podcast. My name is Alexandra Rigazzi-Tarling. I am a vocal coach and technician, a vocal sound healing practitioner and trainer, and I've been working with voice for well over 25 years and bringing everything voice and voice healing to this podcast for discussion. And I'd like to welcome you today to episode 11, Vocal Sound Healing Online, Distant Healing Supercharged. And this podcast is really going out to all of you vocal sound healers out there who are up and running with working online, and also to those of you that are thinking about taking their work online, and possibly those of you that are downright angry that a healer would even think about offering sessions online. The blasphemy. I jest, but actually I am serious to a point, because I have experienced, I guess, the derision in some ways and the disbelief from some sound healers and potential clients that I should even offer a healing session online. And I think I would say to that, don't knock it until you've tried it, folks. So this podcast is also for potential clients out there that don't know, don't know what it's all about and just want a healing session and want to know that they're going to get the same healing or even better experience online. And to you, I say continue to listen, because none of this is actually as simple as the concepts of just on or offline. I think there's something a lot deeper going on. Well, I know there's something a lot deeper going on, because we're back to our perspective and energetic paradigm of vibration, and realizing that the world around us, although it appears solid, and I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again because it's the baseline of what we're working from, but everything around us that appears solid is actually a mass of vibrating particles and atoms. Even us, even the air that we breathe, because it's a gas, so it's matter, and it's vibrating. And this space between you and me, however distant, is connected by matter, commonly known as the ether, although there are lots of other scientific terms for it now. I think Einstein got into a lot of trouble calling it ether, but there are a lot of other terms for it now. But this space, this plasma, Eileen Day McCusick talks about the ether as plasma, matter. And so if everything is actually vibration, matter in movement, frequency, therefore, because it's moving, and science tells us this is not me saying this is science telling us this, then from that perspective, anything is possible, including distant healing, prayer, all sorts. We could go on forever, telepathy, the lot, because when you apply this baseline, it tells you how everything works. And that is what we're going to be talking about today with vocal sound healing online. And this is the thing, this is sort of the thing that sometimes people have to get over, I find, or at least, what I've been learning as well. When we work online with sound healing, the sound is important to a certain extent. So let's say you're working with pure vocal tone over the body, or healing intervals to move the emotional energetic body. It's nice if a client can hear the sound. There's something very relaxing about hearing pure tone, or the intervals created with a drone, for example. All of this sounded with intention. There are harmonics in the sounds that we entrain to. We've talked about that before. These sacred geometrical structures in the sound that gently guide the client's energy back into that universal balance. And, when the client hears those sounds, it's nice. Yeah, it's a nice experience, hopefully, if it's done with care and guidance and so on. But there is something much greater at play. The person receiving the sound doesn't have to actually hear the sound when working online. And this would be the same idea if we were administering a sound healing session to a deaf person that couldn't perceive sound with their ears. So we know anyway that the body is receiving the sound vibrations. But if you're working distantly, if you're working away from the person, if you are sounding with intention into the ether, into this vibrational space around us that's vibrating, that's moving, ebbing and flowing as a response to the sounds that enter it, because we know, as we've said before, sound is a pressure wave and it literally moves molecules, particles, it moves the space around us, even though we can't see it. When we sound with intention, pure intention, healing intention into the ether, we are bringing those harmonic codes from the harmonics, that information, that structure, that sacred geometry, into the physical realm for that person, for the client. And time and distance is a human concept. And I'm seeing that from my work, and quite a lot of this work now, I can say, that time and distance doesn't apply to healing. Not if we're setting it up, with the healing intention and so on and so forth. If the person receiving can hear the sounds, then great. And that is the beauty of online. We can switch the Zoom on or whatever, and there's an open audible channel, and that's great. But it doesn't matter about the sound quality and the volume and all of that. It's not a performance, it's not a concert. We are using the sound very specifically. And yes, the sounds can be nice and they're healing sounds with the structures, the harmonics and all of that, but it's the tip of the iceberg. What matters is the intention of the healer bringing sound into the ether for the highest good of that person that they're working with. That thought energy, that intention. And here something starts to happen. Something that perhaps can't yet be explained with our limited humanness. What it seems like is that the sound is acting like a bridge between the seen and the unseen. So it's bringing information into this physical realm as we know it, or as we don't know it, as I've just said, as we don't know it, the depths of it. It's bringing information into the physical realm encoded with healing patterns. And these patterns arrive with the person via ways that I think we don't fully understand yet. So we understand how it's possible for the sound to move through the ether. And so the sound is not time and space dependent. And that's the bit that's hard for us to get our head around. We sound with an intention for a person and it's with them. So, when I'm working online, it's definitely with them, they can hear it. When we're working distantly, we do it, but they don't hear it because we haven't got the online connection. Everything about the sound, the harmonics, the intervals, the pure tone, the intention is carried within it. The information relevant to that person or being is being transported to them through that sound bridge. And so, this is what I've learned, this is what I've experienced. So it's just like distant healing, and those used to working distantly, you're working with the energy of your thoughts and your intention. You're bringing that energy in and you're using your intention to work for a client or a person. You're bringing the sound into the physical realm and it arrives with that person in real time. But whether working distantly or distantly online, because your voice is so closely linked with your intention, something even more powerful is happening. And I believe that this is specific to voice healing alone. There is a deep communication, a connection, and a sensing that is facilitated by the voice with healing intention for another. And the voice is common to all of us. It holds something very deep as far as communication between us goes, between our species goes. Something far beyond words, something far beyond even simple vocal tone that we use in the sessions. So, there's so much to say about this whole topic, and everything I bring to you today is from my own personal experience of practicing both over the body, physically in the same room as somebody, and with vocal sound healing online, as well as running several rounds of accredited vocal sound healing practitioner trainings over the airways, so online, where students, they always start by observing a physical demo. So they see the demo, they see me doing the treatment of somebody in the space. They observe that. They're online, but they're seeing me do this in the space to a client in person. But when they do their practice in class, they actually go straight into practicing online over the airways. With the in-person classes, we obviously work in person. For the online courses, I've always felt people have more of an advantage because they get to work straight away into that online world, and they have to do 50% of their case studies in person as well. So they actually get to see both sides of the coin. They do 36 case studies in total, so it's a lot of practice. And it's really good, if you can see the online versus the in-person and get your head around it and get into it. And of course, all these things take practice. It's not, bam, we just do it. It's feeling your way, finding your way, getting comfortable, setting it up, working, observing, writing up, observing some more, reflecting. It's so much. It's not just, let's do a couple of treatments, I'm a sound healer. It's so deep. 36 case studies, wow. I'm always really admire people that sign up for this course, because you can go and become a sound healer in a weekend if you want to. This training is taking you to a different level. But that aside, the important thing, and the thing that the online students get, is this observation between online and in-person work. And so this is actually giving them a whole other perspective of how energy works. And it's amazing, even at part one, it's 5 parts of the course, but even at part 1, part 2, we start working over the airways. And straight away people say, it's like I'm in the same room as the person. There's no different. We're human beings, we're used to adjusting and adapting. And people straight away, just guide them by the hand, and then they start to do it. So, this consistent practice, feedback from clients' bodies, leads us to an understanding of how energy communicates to you through your intuition, what might be happening, and so on, because you start to see similarities between sessions of different people, but the similarities come because you start to see, the energy's showing me the same thing there, the energy's showing me the same thing there. So you start to build up your patterns of practice, and that would most likely be individual to you. There will be similarities with other people, but all of this practice and experience allows you to form your own, step into your own power and way of working. And actually at this point, I'd like to thank all of those students and all of those clients that have entrusted me to hold space for their learning online and healing online. That trust. Because of you, I have been able to learn and expand my understanding and awareness of energy in this healing context. And I'm so very grateful to you. And it's been an extraordinary journey, which began with the pandemic and the lock-up, and we were forced to find new ways of working. So what, might have felt like a shutting down actually made people rise up and become more adventurous. And people joined my courses from all around the world. I'm in the UK. I had people join from the US, Alaska, and of course nearer to home in Europe. So, remember that many of us were already working distantly without online before the pandemic. And that was fantastic, because we're already doing it. But it's when you're forced to expand and trial and learn that you can deepen your practice in whatever it is, and go beyond, I think, even what you think is possible. So even though I was working distantly before, it took me to a whole different level, trusting the online experience and being open to what it could teach me. Because at the end of the day, as energy workers, the energy and the sound is teaching us. We are moving and exploring and growing because of what the sound and the energy are teaching us, not only about how energy and sound function in a healing context, but about ourselves. Because as soon as we work in this way, it holds the mirror up, and that is very specific to voice. Because it's you. You feel more vulnerable with your voice. That's the instrument. It's you. So, it's that deepening and allowing that deepening of practice. And that's what the pandemic gave us. It gave us permission to go deeper into this world. Even when, some people, as I said, sort of were really against it. And I think for me, it took me even beyond what I thought was possible. And coming from me, that's something, because I think if anybody who knows me, they know I live in the paradigm of matter as vibration. That's, as I mentioned earlier, check out earlier podcasts. And from this perspective, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And I remember my mother handing me Galba's book on vibrational medicine when I was about 11 or 12, because I kept asking why. I wanted to know what solid things were made of. I'd heard of particles and atoms. I wanted to know, why we weren't taught about this at school, that solid things were made up of tiny particles that were moving. Why those concepts, which we, quite openly talk about in physics and so on, why this wasn't applied to the human body, why that wasn't biology. And, I grew up around music, crystals, healing, all of that. I was very fortunate, or at least I consider myself to be very fortunate. But I wanted to know why the crystal was healing. I wanted to know why putting your hands on someone's body was healing. I wanted to understand all of these things. And I've actually had people say to me, yes, of course solids are made up of tiny vibrating particles, but you can't apply that to anything you want. And I still don't really understand what that means. Maybe we can apply it to ourselves and our bodies. Maybe we can. We know it's mass. We know it's solid. We know it's matter. So I don't really understand that. But hey ho, So back then it was good old Gerber to the rescue. I'm assuming he's German, Gerber. And I've pronounced that correctly. But, he was someone that started to make sense. And bearing in mind this was the late 80s and few people had heard of sound healing back then, including me, it was such a joy to find someone that was speaking vibrational language. And then, later to come into a world of sound healing, my teacher, Simon Heather, to find someone that was speaking the same language as me in terms of vibration, something that I had always known from a very young age. I was finding people in the world that understood what I was thinking. And that was really, really important part of my journey, to find those people later in life. It wasn't until my sort of late 20s, early 30s that I found those people, but I'm very grateful for them. So, anyway, working online back during the pandemic stretched my understanding, and through my own adaptations, I literally received what felt like a software update in how I work, in what I perceive, and what I know to be true. And I've seen some really wonderful, extraordinary things working online, and allowing myself to receive and perceive those things. And I think the most amazing thing that happened was when students would ask me about what they had experienced online without me telling them anything. And it really then backed up what I had seen. So I purposely didn't share what I'd found, as I wanted to assimilate my own experience and make sense of it for myself. But I had students say things like, Alexandra, when you're scanning the energy field of a person online and they're lying in front of the camera, do you see pixelations on the screen where you detect energy blocks? Do you see that? Or am I going out of my mind? And I'd say, no, you're not going out of your mind. I've seen these pixelations when scanning, when tuning, when moving energy in a person's field. And I've seen the picture on the screen change in quality as energy has moved, as it's dispersed, as it's been integrated into the general flow of that person. Weird? Yes. But also no. Because if we really stretch our minds here, what is the screen? The screen is also solid. It's a form. It's created by vibration. The picture is a signal. So, everything we see, we think is the end result. But it isn't. There's so much more going on. And so here we have something in addition to distant healing. We have something extra brought to us by working online. Because in some cases, we're actually able to see the energy movement via the screen, whether it's the pixelations, and so on. And this makes me think of Vicky Dodd's book, Healing Through Sound, which I've recently been enjoying very much, and I've mentioned it a lot in the last couple of episodes. Also because she reads her book on Audible, and it's just, again, we're back to that sound is encoded with information. And it's so exciting to find someone that speaks the true language of vocal sound healing like she does. And there's this part of the book where she talks about having to speak at a conference. I think it's in Italy. Or it was in Italy. Not recently, I think some time ago. And she has to speak in front of, very distinguished scientists and colleagues. And she stands up to talk about the energy work through voice that she's been doing since the 60s. So, she's been working in this way in America since the 60s. And she reflects that she was so nervous as she'd seen her colleagues, rigorously challenged. They were challenging each other over all these scientific theories. And she thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to share? What do I have to share? And she came to a point where she stood up, and what she shared were her experiences and her findings. And she did that with a demonstration as well. And she shared that the most amazing thing happened, that fellow participants and physicists, scientists similar, stood up and gave their theories on what she had experienced and how this was possible using current models of both quantum and mainstream physics. They were fascinated by what she had brought to the table and were able to explain much of it from a very highly analytical and scientific perspective. So, to that end, I'm not going to try to understand what I'm experiencing with healing online. I'm simply going to carry on and report what I find. And I can tell you that people are coming back for more. They experience a session and the shifts in their energy, and they realise the possibilities. And I've been able to work with people all around the world in healing sessions. We don't have any direct physical contact, so I've never met them in person, yet I couldn't be closer to them, working directly into their energy field and highly physical parts of their body. So I'm just going to give you a brief idea of what happens, just to put it in some sort of context for you. So I set a time to meet online with a person. I take a consultation just like I would do in any other session, and I particularly like to work with pinpointing an intention and working through sort of different layers of what a person might bring to the consultation to really get to the sort of crux of what it is they're looking for. And, because although a general intention might be adequate, I like to work very specifically with thought energy. Because, among other things, this plays a very important part in the specificity, the specific nature, the specific nature of the session. I don't edit these podcasts, by the way, so that's, that is what it is. Well, say this, I can't say that word. The specific nature of the session. I know what I want to say, but it's not coming out. So when we're working this specifically with intention, it starts the energy moving before the session's even begun, before the healing aspect's even begun. And I'll often guide people to really locate the root of what they're searching for in a session. And once we're clear, we begin to work. But important here is that defining that intention sets the energy moving. And also there's a sense of self-agency for the client to define and pinpoint what it is they feel and need, with my guidance, of course. In this sort of human plethora of wants and desires, what is it we actually need and what is it we want? It's often a very difficult thing to pinpoint. And also when a client's working with this, there's a sense of feeling heard as we work together to align our thought energy for the session. And then there's a sense of empowerment as we focus on manifesting it. And I've talked about this before, but psychological research tells us that self-agency and feeling heard are key to well-being. And this is happening before we've even started the official healing aspect. So then the person lies down, gets comfy, fully clothed in front of the camera, and it's helpful for me to be able to see at least a part of their body, mainly for safety, to make sure they're okay as we go through the session. I normally, if I can't see the whole body, I'll just see, the bit of the torso and the head, so I can just check they're okay, they're breathing, everything's okay. But what you'll understand in a moment is it's not necessary for me to see all of their body. And so we set up the healing intention, we connect to the flow of energy for the client's highest good. And so in that moment, I'm handing over to the creative flow and intelligence of the universe. And for me, that is source. And that is the healing aspect of being a sound healer. That's the healing bit. That's different from therapy. That's the healing aspect. And there's really a handing over to this creative force, this spark of what has brought all of this into being. Source. The ultimate, purest vibration. And then whatever happens from that point on is a result of source manifestation. And I don't work with anything other than source. And any other frequencies that enter the session come as a result, an allowance of source. And that is key. And I've found that to be key throughout my years of doing this. And then we begin to scan. And this is where it gets really interesting. In person, we'd scan about 10 to 15 centimetres away from the body, maybe closer, but generally 10 to 15 centimetres. And also out into the subtle energy layers if guided. Online, I begin to scan, but with a sort of half vision. Watching the client, but also handing over to my inner vision. And inner vision presents a bit like imagination in that the visual you will see feels like it's in the same place as where you would place the visuals of imagination. So whenever you would imagine something, wherever you see that, that's usually where inner vision is manifesting. So, when working with a person, you might start a scan at the foot and then work up one side of the body and then do the same on the other side of the body. And we notice the sound quality, any shifts, any changes, any places we're drawn, anything that stands out, any visuals that come in, any sounds, any smells, anything. The intuition will speak to you in so many ways. However, what happens online, at least for me, and I know some other students that I've worked with have experienced the same, is that as you begin to work up the body starts to present itself in your mind's eye. And this is what I mean about not worrying if you can see the whole body in front of you in the camera. The body shows itself to you, and as you use your vocal tone to continue the scanning, the body literally twists and turns in your mind's eye, showing you exactly where healing or energy movement and balance is needed. So I might be taken to various superficial parts of the body, into the fascia, or deep inside the body, sometimes deep into major organs. And, you know, as we sound and scan, as vocal sound healers, we understand that we are gently restoring the flow of energy to the body where it's needed, or balancing the flow where it might be blocked or erratic. That's our job. We're energy tuners. The body shows you where this is needed. It shows you in person, you'll be drawn to certain areas. And then as we sound in, because this is healing, as I've mentioned before, when you go to a healer, you're working with someone who's tapping into that creative force of the universe to work quite specifically with your individual body. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So when we tune into this creative force of the universe, we're given the sounds that that person's body needs in that moment, in that day, because we're constantly changing. It's never the same. And online, the body presents to you where to make that sound. And I think this is quite specific to working online. It's very precise. Although we're guided by our intuition when we're working in person, as in working in the same physical space, when we're in that space sitting next to somebody, we also have all of that physical matter in the room as well. So it's a lot to get through. You think about all that matter, all that dense energy, all those thought forms, constructs, opinions, conditioning, all manifesting in the same lump of dense energy in the space that is, you know, the human body as it goes through life. Whereas online, it seems we are bypassing all of the heavy physical and working straight into the energetic aspect. And this allows for us to work at such a deep level. So, for example, the other day I was doing a vocal sound healing online, and I was shown the person's right kidney in my mind's eye. And the next thing I could perceive was my consciousness inside the client's body at the kidney. I was sounding, and I was sounding like really quite high, pure, tiny tones. And I was suddenly shown that I was sounding deep into the core of the kidney. And I saw rings, almost like the rings of a tree, but in the kidney. And the sounds were extremely specific and quite hard to make. When I sounded these, the sounds came through me, and initially they were quite raspy and shrill. And gradually I continued to work with these sounds over the space of a couple of minutes, that's all. We don't need to be there for hours. And they became more and more pure, they became more easeful for me to make. And it literally felt like I was tuning the kidney into a more coherent sound, that specific organ, very deep. The body then presented to me in a much wider lens in my mind's eye and sort of zoomed out, literally, and then zoomed in over the lower energy centres. And I received a mental instruction or a desire, a need, a sort of intuitive language to ground the discharge of energy from the kidney down through the root into the earth. Now, I appreciate that listening to what I'm saying might sound quite far out if you're not used to hearing this type of conversation. I've been working with intuition like this for many years now. And I've been working online like this for about 5 years. And I no longer need to think or question in the moment. I just receive the visuals. I'm shown where to go. I hear the sounds to make. I don't question it. I trust it. And I trust it because I've had so much feedback from clients about the accuracy of what was happening and how it affected them after the session. And I mention this because it's key, because learning our intuitive language is not left brain. It's not thinking. In fact, if we're in an energy field and we're thinking and like we're getting drawn in, it actually forms an attachment between us and the client. And that's really no good for them or us. So we know that practicing the art of unattachment in healing is so important. And with these extraordinary goings on, which are a result of working online, I believe, is I haven't experienced that level of accuracy or intensity working in person with someone or completely distantly. So this, what I'm explaining to you, is very specific to working online. I do see into bodies in person, but not with the accuracy that I have been seeing online. And so with all of that and that intensity, remaining unattached from the outcome seems even more important. We know this as healers anyway. We're not attached to the outcome. We trust that comes through, we work, we're done. Because we don't want to be staying connected with the person. It's a fine line, between healing and entrainment. But there is a sense of absolute trust with that flow of energy in the universe. Not questioning, not thinking when in the moment. And that way our energy doesn't get mixed up with the client. We're only there as a vibrating vessel. We are there to generate that sound, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. And that's very specific to voice, that we are the instrument. And don't get me wrong, it's very pragmatic in its way. If you didn't know what I was doing, if you walked into the room while I was doing a session, which you wouldn't, but if you did, you'd just see me guide the client into relaxation, close my eyes on and off, and make vocal tones at the laptop. And, I might use some tuning forks and a rattle, but the voice is really the main thing. And I instruct the client to connect with their root, their earth connection. I tell them not to pay too much attention to what they hear, but rather to try to relax and remain in allowance of what happens. And that looks like them having a gentle snooze in most cases. So it sounds very weird and wonderful, and it is, but it's very simple and straightforward physically. The connection that is happening is through my energy system and me getting out of the way mentally, so I can best transmit what comes through with the visuals and so on. So this is where we're at. And there is so much more happening as a result of working with the computer connection. And I don't think, as I said, it's to do with the computer connection. Although I was speaking to one person who thought that the electricity and the signals involved with the screen and the computer and the communication aspect and the matter and the vibration could be playing a part, and that may be so. But I think what it's calling us to do is really work with pure intention and pure energy and pure visual, mind's eye, sensing, whatever way you access your intuition. It's teaching us about where our consciousness sits and where we can place it. And, in addition to that, I can reach people all over the world with this work, and it's like they're in the same room with me, or better, and it's actually better. So how much can we allow with our mind? If this is triggering you, how much can you allow? How much can we step out of human constructs and often what we've been told, what we've been taught? And, the crazy thing is with quantum physics, and I mean, the actual respected and studied field of quantum physics, is that a lot of what we've been told is not actually true. And, as a race and a species, we had to learn, didn't we? It's all evolving. So it's not a conspiracy, it's just an evolution. It's observation, it's learning. And, in my earlier episodes, I spoke about allowing your senses, allowing sensitivity, allowing yourself to re-sensitize, to get in touch with your body's language, what it's communicating to you. Because this is key to defining your own unique intuitive language. I spoke about finding regulation in the silence, and this is also key, finding that balance within yourself. We need to approach this work from regulation of our own nervous system. It's when we're in that place we can begin to listen deeply to what is ours and what is not ours, and notice the difference. And when we understand this, we can form a deeper level of inquiry and bring this into our healing sessions. We have to find that baseline. What is me every day? How do I show up every day? What is my pure tone, my voice, my easeful sound? What sound can I make every day that's consistent, so that I know when these things are affected by something outside of me? And this is what's so individual about vocal sound healing. We become the instrument for sensing, for tuning into frequency, for offering the sound frequencies. And you can't switch that on for healing sessions and switch it off for life. It's a journey of personal energetic development and healing, and once you've started it, you've started it. It will move your energy until you are aligned. It's raw and it's immediate. And, there's no other instrument in the way, just you. Your mind as the most advanced radio tuner there is, and your body is the most incredible sensing instrument available, transforming all the codes of energy around you into information, which you may choose to listen to or not, depending on what your mission is. So, if you're a vocal sound healer and wanting to give online a go, you need to just adjust various settings on Zoom, for example, like allowing original sound for musicians if you want the person to hear you, which, as we've said, is still a nice thing. If someone can just sort of hear those sounds, it's a very lovely way of guiding someone into that silence, into that relaxation. And there are other things to consider, like the preparation of the client, getting them into a state of relaxation and allowance before you start, because they're not in your space. They're not coming into your lovely therapy room and with your oils and your lovely ambience. They might just be on their bed at home where all of their patterns of life are. So you need to work harder to get them into that place of allowance, into that place of relaxation. And then they're going to need so much more grounding, as they're in their space, as we've said, and not in yours. You need to make sure they're fully integrated energetically and balanced after the session. And if you're new to all of this, then check out some of the basics via my online video courses, which will get you vocal toning, get you uncovering your authentic vocal sound, just start getting you moving your voice in that healing way. I finished teaching my current practitioner trainings in April, and I'm in the process of writing new ones, which will incorporate most of what I speak about in this podcast, in general. So if you want to be kept in touch about those, then head over to my website, soundandvoicehealingstudio.com, and register for the newsletter. And I expect these courses to launch late 2026, early 2027, and run online and in person. So yeah, more about those as they emerge and as they come to fruition. But I think that's it for now, folks. Hopefully that's given you an idea of what's going on with me when I work online, and perhaps some food for thought of what you can do or what you're already doing. As I said, I know that I've worked with lots of students that are already doing this, so it's not just me. And yeah, I hope it's been useful. So do join me again next time. We had a little bit of a gap. I had a 2-week gap because I was doing some healing of my own last week. So I wasn't downloading for everyone else. I was sorting myself out. So we've had a little gap, but I'm hoping to be back next week as normal. And do like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. And I look forward to being with you again soon and talking all things vocal sound healing. So take good care, folks, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.